Hello, Gail?
There we are.
You can hear me?
Now I can hear you. That's much
Perfect.
better.
Good.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. I think it was something with maybe an old computer. I have a different laptop, so I'm on my iPad now. So
No problem.
let's
Perfect.
see if that works. Okay, now I can see everybody. Okay.
Okay, so
Look
hello.
at that.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour, bonjour.
Je vais juste commencer la première question que
Cheers, santé.
Coraline va traduire et après, évidemment, on va vous passer évidemment la parole pour continuer cette rencontre. Alors, la première question que je voudrais poser à Gail pour introduire cette rencontre, c'est d'abord de la remercier évidemment énormément de participer à ce chat. C'est un grand plaisir, un grand honneur évidemment de l'avoir aujourd'hui. Et alors aussi de lui poser une question par rapport à ce projet qu'elle vient de lancer, qui est un projet Patreon. Donc, c'est une plateforme américaine qui est bien connue, qui est de plus en plus connue ici aussi en Europe, et qui permet aux artistes de proposer du contenu multimédia, que ce soit des vidéos, des textes et des choses, et de pouvoir en fait échanger avec les fans. Donc voilà, petite question générale pour ouvrir le débat et les questions.
Okay, so hi, Gail.
Hello.
So thank you very much for being here tonight.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's a real pleasure for all of us and a real honor as well. And so we wanted to start by asking you about your project on the platform Patreon. If you could tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, I just started that last month, on the month of February, and it's a new thing. It's very interesting. You know, it's just a way to, you know, trying to make some form of income, but also to just stay creative and to stay in touch with people who are interested in music and interested in musicians and all that comes with that, basically. So it's just you know, for me, it's a platform to just try and keep using my imagination to do interesting things for people in this medium, because it's a little bit of a strange way to communicate. But it's effective. It's what we have, and that's just it. I'm trying to learn my way around it. But I'm offering things like you know, I'm not often people ask me for bass lessons or something like that, or singing lessons, but I've never had any training. I'm completely I play by ear, and I've learned as I go along. So I don't read music, and I don't know about scales and exercises and all those things, other than things I find for myself to better my own playing if I'm searching out some information. So it's more like a philosophical bass hang, you know, in a way. I really want to talk, you know, I do a stream once a month where it's not just for bass players, it could be for anyone, but it's bass centric, where I just talk about the instrument, and I want to hear other people's stories about their bass playing or their experiences, share some of my own, share some things more about listening, because I think, you know, a lot of times, well, most things, you know, well, music instruction is about doing something with your instrument, like getting the right tone, or learning how to, you know, how to do the right fingering or tonguing or trilling or whatever it is, whatever instrument you play. But you know, eventually you're going to play your instrument in most cases with other musicians. And I think the most important thing is learning how to listen as well. And I don't know, you know, I know there are probably courses in critical listening where you can really kind of analyze things, and probably in classical music. But that's kind of more my approach, is that I want to kind of share some music with people that has inspired me, that I think is something worth exploring if you're a bass player and you want to play a certain type of music. So, and then I'm open for questions and just talking about music in general. So that's one thing I offer. Another thing is I have a chat like this once a month, just hang out and chat about whatever, you know, ask me questions, talk about movies, talk about books, talk about things that's on people's minds, which is interesting because, you know, it's been such an isolated time, even for myself. It's like, you know, to be able to connect and know what other people are thinking. You can get in your own head sometimes when when you're inside all the time by yourself or just with one or two other people. And also I'm offering music. I want to start working on my own record now, which is long overdue. But one of the things that is kind of, for me, a good exercise to kind of get my writing muscles and things going, because I've been just doing live work for so many years and just touring. I'm not a good multitasker. So I'm not always doing that, writing songs and doing recording at the same time. So I kind of need to get a rhythm with something. So something that I created for the Patreon is that once a month I name an artist. I pick someone, an artist that I like. It could be a songwriter, it could just be the artist. And people who subscribe to the highest tier can vote on a song by that artist that they would like to hear me cover. And the song that gets the most votes, I will do a version of it. It might not be exactly like the song itself. And at the end of each month, I give that as a download. You have a song. So you'll have a song from me once a month. And eventually you'll have my own songs too, but the whole thing has been, like I said, it's just going into March, the second month. There are other things I offer. I'll be sharing some audio stuff that, maybe rehearsals of things that people have never heard, and some photographs that I've taken along the road with different artists, and videos that I've made with different artists along the road, like behind the scenes stuff. So that's part of it as well. Just it's a few, it's going to be a fun thing, I think. But I definitely have to find like the rhythm for it, it's because it's just going into the second month. And it can be, I thought, well, I can manage that, but it can be a little overwhelming to kind of pull all those things together in 3 weeks or whatever. But I'm doing it, that's it. So it's good. It's a good kick up the ass for me. That's what I need. You do sometimes, especially, it's been hard, like just emotionally. This whole last year has been very difficult for everybody. And I know, just speaking with my peers and other musicians, it's been really, really hard for musicians, because we haven't really, those of us who play live have lost a huge outlet. It's not quite the same as, sports people are going back to work, or, it's an odd feel. It's just an odd feeling that you're not like going to play for somebody somewhere. And it's definitely not the same as playing for a camera, that, when with people who are, in another country. It's just not the same. So, it might be fun because that's all we have, but it's not the same. So, doing Patreon is good. It's just kind of keeping me inspired to do things, because it's been hard. I'm going to be honest. It's been very difficult to feel even motivated anymore.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll take time to translate.
It's a lot. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
But I think there's some English speakers amongst. I saw some reactions there.
Yeah, but for the rest of the people, I will take the time to translate.
Désolée.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Voilà, alors tout le monde. Donc, le projet Patreon dont Laurent en parlait, c'est en fait un nouveau projet. Gail vient juste de commencer ici au mois de février. Et voilà, c'est pour elle notamment un moyen de toucher des revenus, mais c'est surtout un moyen d'être créative, de garder une connexion avec les gens, la musique, et voilà, et pouvoir utiliser son imagination à quelque chose. Et voilà, là pour l'instant, comme c'est tout nouveau, elle essaye seulement de s'y retrouver, de voir comment ça marche, etc. Et on ne m'entend pas? On m'entend?
Si, continue.
Ok. Et donc, voilà, il y a pas mal de personnes qui demandent à Gail si elle peut donner des cours de basse ou de chant, mais elle-même joue la basse, enfin, elle a appris elle-même, et donc c'est à l'oreille qu'elle connaît ça, et elle ne connaît pas vraiment la théorie, tout ça, donc c'est pas quelque chose dont elle va parler. Ce sera plus un lieu où elle pourra parler de façon philosophique de la basse et en parler. Donc ça, c'est quelque chose qu'elle ferait une fois par mois. Ça serait centré sur la basse, et où les gens peuvent échanger leur histoire et la sienne également. Et c'est aussi un moyen pour elle de son approche, c'est plus le fait d'écouter, écouter la façon dont on joue de la basse pour pouvoir, parce qu'effectivement, il faut apprendre à trouver la bonne tonalité, savoir mettre ses mains sur le manche de basse, etc. Mais le but, c'est quand même de pouvoir jouer avec d'autres personnes. Donc, c'est vraiment le fait d'écouter qui l'intéresse. Et également, une fois par mois, elle fera un petit chat où voilà, ce sera pour parler un peu de tout, de musique, de livres, etc. Gail est aussi en train de travailler sur un nouvel album. Et c'est quelque chose qu'elle a pu faire ici récemment, vu qu'elle n'est plus en tournée. Elle disait qu'en tournée, elle n'est pas vraiment multitâche. Donc en tournée, elle se concentre vraiment là-dessus et ne peut pas travailler sur son album. Mais ici, vu la situation, elle a pu effectivement se concentrer plus à ses propres projets. Et du coup, dans le futur, elle espère pouvoir nous faire écouter ses propres chansons. Et en attendant, elle va aussi, une fois par mois, proposer aux abonnés qui auront l'abonnement premium, je dirais, de voter. Elle va donner le nom d'un artiste et les abonnés pourront choisir cet artiste et elle fera une version d'une chanson que les abonnés auront choisie. Elle proposera également des photos, des vidéos, etc., qui n'ont jamais été partagées, de moments où elle était en tournée avec différents artistes, etc. Mais voilà, donc pour l'instant, elle cherche un peu comment fonctionne Patreon et elle va voir à quel rythme elle pourra faire tous ces échanges. Et donc, elle trouve que c'est en tout cas quelque chose de très intéressant parce que, voilà, au cours de l'année passée, ça a été dur émotionnellement pour elle, pour tous les musiciens, parce que, voilà, le fait de perdre l'aspect live des concerts, c'est quand même une grande partie pour les musiciens. Et voilà, c'est un peu bizarre ici, la situation, et ça n'a rien à voir, le fait de jouer devant une caméra ou devant un public. Mais du coup, voilà, cette plateforme est un échange et ça permet de ne plus rester isolé, enfin de ne plus être isolé, et ça lui permet de rester inspiré et motivé. Voilà.
Merci Coraline pour la longue traduction. On va prendre une question. Donc voilà, allez-y pour brancher votre micro un à la fois et on va prendre les questions.
Ok, Laurent, moi j'ai une question. Première question concerne le titre Ashes to Ashes, sur lequel la basse est en slap. Et en live, ce n'est pas elle qui joue cette ligne de basse-là, généralement, parce qu'elle prend la guitare. Alors pourquoi? Est-ce que c'est parce qu'elle ne maîtrise pas le slap, ou parce qu'elle n'aime pas le slap, ou parce qu'elle préfère jouer la guitare sur ce morceau-là?
Yeah, I don't really like slap bass particularly. I mean, it has its place like anything, you know, there's sometimes you know, I don't mind playing it, but I just, I think he's referring to when I would play the guitar on that song live.
Yeah, right,
and Mark Platty would play the bass on that, which he did do all of the slapping bass on that. I just thought also that he did a better job at that. So it was just, guitar is my first instrument and my first love, really. I don't really play it as well as the bass, but I still believe that one day I can and will. You know, what was fun about that band is that, you know, I could switch around if I wanted. You know, we all could do whatever we wanted to do. That was one of the perks about working with David. It was like, so if I had an opportunity to play some guitar, like acoustic on Uncle Floyd or something, you know, I would jump at it, you know, just to have a change in the night, so I'm not on the bass. So it wasn't that I hated slap bass and I didn't want to play it, because then on the reality tour, I played it. Mark wasn't there and I played the slap bass just like the record. So it was just that I had the opportunity to play the guitar and I took it. It was fun.
Okay, so maybe I'm going to translate the first question and ask the second question after.
Yes. Okay.
Alors tout le monde, donc voilà, c'est vrai que Gail n'aime pas trop la basse slap, mais ça ne la dérange pas. En fait, lors de cette tournée, c'est Mark Platty qui faisait la basse slap. Et elle trouvait simplement ce qui était meilleur qu'elle. Et elle joue la guitare sur ce morceau-là, en fait. Et bon, voilà, la guitare, c'est son premier instrument, son premier amour. Et donc, pour elle, c'est aussi l'occasion de pouvoir faire autre chose. Et elle explique que c'est aussi ça qui était sympa avec le groupe, avec David Bowie, c'est que tous les membres du groupe pouvaient interchanger leur place dans le groupe, en fait. Et voilà, et notamment sur le reality tour, là, elle joue la basse en faisant le slapping. Donc, c'est pas qu'elle n'aime pas particulièrement, mais c'est plus le fait de pouvoir faire autre chose.
Daniel?
Oui. Bonsoir Gail.
Bonsoir.
Voilà, je voulais te demander, en fait, je sais que tu reprenais Under Pressure avec David Bowie sur la scène, et j'aurais voulu savoir comment vous avez procédé pour reprendre les parties de Freddie Mercury, parce que lui, bon, avait une voix vraiment très haute, très spéciale.
Okay, so Gail, Danielle is asking about your cover of Under Pressure, well, your duet with David Bowie, and is asking how you worked it out to take Freddie Mercury's part, because it's such a special voice and, you know, very high pitched.
Well, I didn't really have any choice. It was one of those challenges of life that comes, and you either at least try it or just run away from it. And at that point, you know, I did it for so many, it became a staple in all of the tours, like from quite early on. And it was in my first few weeks of touring with David that he came to me after the show. It was on one of the 9 Inch Nails shows we were doing for the Outside album. He came to me in the dressing room before a show or something, and he said to me, what did I think about doing Under Pressure the way he did it with Annie Lennox, he mentioned, at Freddie Mercury's kind of memorial concert. And I, of course, saw that. I was even in London at the time. And I was like, oh my God, you know, and I'm a huge Annie Lennox fan as well. I love the Eurythmics. My first thought was, well, if I'm going to do that, who's going to play the bass? I imagine myself like Annie Lennox with makeup and, you know, and he was like, well, no, you're going to play the bass. And I thought, how am I going to play the bass and sing it at the same time? And he just looked at me with a little, like, in his way, which was he's quite cheeky in a way. And he said, I'll give you 2 weeks. And then he walked out of the room. And so at that point, I had the challenge. I had 2 weeks to figure out how I was going to sing that and play it at the same time. And 2 weeks later, sure enough, he was like, are you ready to try it in the sound check? Let's try it out. The rest is history. I figured it out. I mean, I had to, this is something I was talking about in one of my bass the first bass hang in Patreon was about singing and playing. And you know, it's not a mystery to figure out how it could work, but what I had to do was to take each section where I had to sing and play and use a metronome, like something to keep time, and take it almost half the speed of the actual song, and slowly see what's happening with my voice at the same time as these notes are playing, and just slowly work each section. I mean, I worked on it every single day, step by step. And then I would bring the tempo up until eventually it got to the tempo of the song and it was locked in. It got locked in my system like that way. Like I knew when I hit that note or whatever, I'm going to be playing this. And then the more I did it, like I could go away from it and I could come back to it and it would always be kind of locked in my memory. And that's kind of how I've done a lot of things, even a lot of stuff with Tears for Fears was a lot of singing on that and a lot of sometimes quite complicated bass playing. So that had given me I'm thankful for having had the Tears for Fears job before I had to do things with David that were even more complicated, because it was a good training. It was one of the best training grounds. And I didn't know what was around the corner, but I was definitely on the right path to figuring out how to play under pressure and sing it at the same time. And then I made it my own. It didn't really sound that great off the ground. I could get through it, but when I listened to me doing it in 1996 and doing it in 2003 or whatever, it's like night and day. Like I feel like I made it my own and still kept the spirit of Freddie, which was very important to me because David also knew that Queen was my favorite band of all time. So maybe that's why he asked me maybe he was offering me the chance to do it. I didn't even think of it in that way, but so I was just, whatever I did, I was just trying to do Freddie proud more than anything. And I was always trying to do David proud because that's how you feel when you work for him. That's what you want to do. You want to do your best.
Great, thank you. Donc voilà, pour répondre à la question, en fait, elle n'a pas vraiment eu le choix. Ça a été plus un challenge. C'est David Bowie qui lui a proposé, quand ils étaient en train de faire la tournée Outside, qui lui a demandé ce qu'il pensait de la version de Under Pressure avec Annie Lennox. Et voilà, lui demander si elle pouvait faire aussi une version comme ça avec lui de Under Pressure. Elle se demandait juste, mais qui jouera la basse alors? Et David Bowie lui a répondu, toi. Donc il fallait faire à la fois la basse et le chant. Et il lui a dit, voilà, t'as 2 semaines pour faire ça. Et il est parti comme ça. Il a laissé tout seul se débrouiller. Et donc voilà, 2 semaines plus tard, ils étaient en répétition et elle avait trouvé le truc. En fait, pour mélanger à la fois le chant et la musique, elle a repris chaque section de la chanson en utilisant un métronome et en réduisant le tempo de moitié au début. Et voilà, en pratiquant chaque jour et en augmentant le tempo de plus en plus jusqu'à ce que ce soit le tempo vraiment de la chanson et jusqu'à ce que ce soit vraiment imprimé en elle, que ce soit devenu, je veux dire, automatique. Et son expérience avec Tears for Fears, elle en est très contente parce que c'est aussi quelque chose qui lui a permis, parce que là aussi, elle joue et chante en même temps. Et c'est quelque chose qui lui a permis d'être prête, entre guillemets, pour jouer avec David Bowie. Et voilà, elle explique aussi qu'elle en a fait sa propre version, que la version qu'elle faisait en 96 et aujourd'hui, c'est le jour et la nuit. Mais que, voilà, ce qui était important pour elle, c'était de garder l'esprit de Freddie Mercury. Et notamment parce qu'elle est fan de Queen et elle se dit que Bowie lui a peut-être en fait offert l'opportunité de faire ce duo parce qu'elle est fan justement. Et donc voilà, pour elle c'était très important de rendre à la fois Freddie Mercury et Bowie fiers. Et donc elle espère avoir fait ça avec cette reprise de Under Pressure.
Merci.
Merci.
Je comprends.
Je sais que la prochaine question, Peter a essayé de prendre la parole juste après Daniel,
Yes.
donc je t'en prie. Vas-y.
Hi, Gail.
Hello.
Hello. I will do it in English because I don't speak French, so I will do
Okay,
it in
great.
English. Okay.
Wonderful.
Just wondering, how was it working with David Bowie in the studio? When you came into the studio, was everything already fixed or ready, the songs? Or did you have was there a room for improvisation and so on?
There's always room for improvisation. If you have an idea, he's always open to it. For me, the first record I worked on with him was Earthling, which was, the songs were already done, or there were some elements of the songs that were done. I think that him and Reeves and maybe Mark Platty as well, who was engineering and kind of co-producing some of that stuff, they had already had this kind of drum and bass thing going. They had so the structure was there. With David, his songs are pretty much done. Like he knows what the words are and he knows what the melody's going to be, but he might not know all the different parts that are going to be there, and he definitely gives you a platform to see where you're going to go, where you'll go with it. He's more like open to, he'll have there could be a structure, obviously, you know, like satellites or something like that. It was pretty much there. There was the drums, and Reeves had all the guitars going, and but in terms of like how to, he would basically, he'd let you try something, and it could go in a direction he wasn't thinking, and he would just be very happy about that. He'd be like, oh, that's great, keep going, keep doing that. Or it's like, no, that's not the right way. I have this idea, and you spring it, and then even maybe that doesn't work. He was very, he knew what he didn't want. But he was, I guess in a way I would say, he knew what he did not want to hear, but he was open to hearing what you had to play, always. He was always open. If he had a specific thing that was already set, it would just stay set. But if there were any areas that weren't final in his head, that he totally wants you to do whatever you think. What do you think? What do you hear? Like 7 years in Tibet, I had no idea. Like that was just like this thing, and it was like da, 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 da. Like this is sojourn. I was like, well, what am I gonna do on the bass with this? Like, and I thought, oh, I want to do one like a very slow Motown. Like it would be like if you sped it up, it would be a lot of notes. But if you took it slow, it's like a snake kind of slithering through the grass. And so I came up with that bass part. And but there wasn't anything that was there at all. There wasn't a guide. You know, sometimes there's a guide, sometimes there isn't. I know it's a long-winded question, but it can change, you know, it depends on the songs. But in general, he came in with the songs. He already had the songs written. Maybe he might change some words or whatever, but he always had a structure and a basic thing that he was already working on. It was there you just came to embellish that.
Is there something on the records you worked on that you really can say, that's mine, that's my contribution?
Well, that one for sure. I was always really proud of that on the 7 years in Tibet. And then of course it just goes into the rock part. So then I knew what to do when that part came. But it's like on the verses, it was all that atmospheric stuff, and it has a drum machine, because Zach isn't even playing the drums until it comes in on the big choruses. So it was just this thing. I was like, well, what would the bass do in this section? It could do a million different things. And I was really proud that I came up with that idea. I remember it was fairly quickly as well, if I recall. What else would I say? I don't know. I don't know what else I would say. I can't think of anything. I'm not on many of the albums in terms of bass. I guess on the next day, I can't think of the songs now. It's just too many things in my head right now. But I'm sure I know there were some things on the next day that I was very, very proud of. I'm trying to think of it. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry. Donc voilà, tout le monde. C'était, je ne sais plus, qui a demandé,
Peter.
Voilà, Peter, voilà, qui demandait comment ça se passait en studio avec David Bowie, si voilà, on arrivait, on faisait quelque chose de très, qui était déjà préparé, ou s'il y avait moyen d'improviser. Donc Gail répond que y a toujours moyen d'improviser et que David Bowie était toujours ouvert aux idées des autres. Donc elle a d'abord participé à l'album Earthling, mais donc cet album, en fait, quand elle est rentrée en studio, les chansons étaient déjà pratiquement faites, la structure était là en tout cas. Et donc ce qu'elle explique, c'est que quand David Bowie avait quelque chose en tête, voilà, ça c'est quelque chose qu'on ne pouvait pas changer. Par contre, s'il y avait des zones un peu plus grises, un peu plus sombres, où il ne savait pas trop quoi faire, là, il y avait vraiment moyen d'apporter sa patte et de donner ses idées. Et voilà, parfois il trouvait ça vraiment super, parfois c'est pas la direction dans laquelle il voulait aller. Mais donc voilà, il savait, en tout cas il savait ce qu'il ne voulait pas, mais il était ouvert, il écoutait les autres. Et donc, Gail parle notamment du morceau 7 Years in Tibet, où voilà, là c'est une ambiance atmosphérique très douce, etc. Où voilà, il savait l'ambiance qu'il voulait pour les couplets, mais c'est Gail qui a apporté sa contribution à ça, c'est elle qui a trouvé la ligne de basse, et elle en est très très fière, c'est quelque chose qu'elle a trouvé rapidement. Et elle sait aussi que sur The Next Day, elle a trouvé elle-même des lignes de basse, mais elle ne sait plus sur quelle chanson.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Je me demandais, Gail, si dans l'approche de sa musique, dans la façon dont elle a appris la musique, elle a déjà été heurtée à certaines difficultés avec les artistes. La façon d'apprendre, la façon de savoir lire, l'improvisation, les choses comme ça, si elle a déjà eu des problèmes pour suivre une façon de travailler.
So Gail, they were asking if, since you were you're self-taught in music, sorry, since you don't know the theory and everything, was it a problem to work with any artists who wanted to work in a special way? Was that a problem with the way that you learned the bass and music?
I think it was more a problem in my own head. I thank God, I never got hired for anything that I got fired from because I wasn't able to do it because I couldn't read. So people always knew that, I guess, from the start, or actually most people are not. In my type of music that I've been playing, nobody's reading music. I mean, once in a while, there's something that you know, those who can read music will write themselves a note or a chart. Mike Garson, of course, he could read it, you know. He plays so many notes that he wouldn't remember what he had played. So if David wanted him to do it again, he had to write it down, and he could read it and play it exactly the same. He could read anything, but that's where he came from, you know. But I never, it was more of a handicap in my own mind, because I would be doubtful and afraid when something was complicated, or that I knew that it was going to take me a long time to figure it out, and especially when someone would change the key at the last minute. That was like one of my nightmares. You know, I have nightmares about that. I don't anymore. I've gotten used to it. Because I've managed to dodge all those bullets. So I guess, again, those were things just keeping me on my toes, or just keeping me like learning, or keeping my ears, you know. It's, for me, it's like if I you know, if I can sing it to myself and hear it, I can find it. It's more about finding the notes rather than knowing what those notes are. So I have to keep those receptors open at all times in every way, hence not wearing shoes, because it takes my mind off like hearing and feeling. But yeah, it's not been, so far, touch wood, it's not been a problem, but it has been a problem for me personally. Even if I don't even say anything about it, I'd be like dying inside. I'd be like, oh my God, they changed the key, and I'd be sweating, and I'm going to find a pen to make a new, I have a way of making my own charts. Like, they're not, maybe another musician might not be able to read it, but I know I have my own kind of way of writing something so that I can follow, more for structural reasons, because that's where I have to remember how many verses, how many lines. Oh, there's a 2-bar here, and I can sort of follow my little roadmap to know where I'm going, but it doesn't have notes on it. It doesn't have dots. Maybe a few little, like I'll write C, D, F or something, and I'll remember that those are the notes, but I can remember the rhythm of them in my head. So that I have all these different ways of figuring things out that have served me fine. So far, so good.
Yeah. Ok, donc voilà, tout le monde, donc Gail explique que pour elle, non, elle n'a jamais eu, ça n'a jamais posé de problème pour les artistes avec lesquels elle a travaillé, que heureusement, elle n'a jamais été virée d'un job pour lequel elle avait été engagée à cause de ça, notamment parce que les gens le savaient au moment où il l'engageait, pardon. Et notamment dans son style de musique, c'est pas la plupart des gens ne connaissent pas la musique, la théorie, etc. Donc tout le monde est un peu dans le même bateau. C'était plus pour elle que ça posait problème. Elle doute, ça crée en elle des doutes, une certaine peur, notamment quand les musiciens décident de changer la tonalité, où pour elle c'est un vrai cauchemar. Maintenant ça va, mais c'est quelque chose qui l'a hantée un peu. Et donc elle explique qu'en fait à partir du moment où elle sait le chanter elle-même, voilà, c'est toujours à l'oreille. C'est comme ça qu'elle doit trouver les notes. C'est pas plus le fait de connaître les notes, mais de les trouver elle-même. Et voilà. Et donc elle explique simplement qu'elle a sa propre façon d'écrire pour elle-même, pour avoir une structure, pour savoir voilà les couplets, etc. Mais heureusement, voilà, ça n'a jamais cette façon d'avoir appris la musique n'a jamais posé problème avec d'autres artistes.
Merci Coraline. Je vois
J'ai une question.
Oui, voilà Mélanie.
Oui. Bonsoir Gail.
Bonsoir.
Voilà. Est-ce qu'il y a un titre de Bowie que vous pouvez écouter comme ça en boucle tout le temps? Est-ce qu'elle a un titre de Bowie, son titre préféré, mais la chose en boucle, voilà, dont elle ne peut pas se lasser? Voilà.
I don't remember this song that I. Okay, I'm trying to practice my French here.
Yeah, but
I'm starting to understand some of it. Some words I'm not understanding.
Great. So yeah, Melanie was asking basically if there was a song from Bowie that you could listen over and over again on loop, a favorite song maybe, or just one that you never get tired of listening to.
One of the ones that I performed on the Mike Garson's recent Bowie celebration, Strangers When We Meet. I love that song. The other one would be, oh man. It'd probably be the other song that I performed as well, Can You Hear Me? I love the Young Americans album. I never get tired of listening to that. It was the first Bowie album that really drew me into how great of a singer he was. Prior to that, because I wasn't, he wasn't like, I wasn't a huge Bowie fan, like a fanatic or anything. It wasn't something that I loved his work because it was so different from everyone else. That's one thing I liked. And I remember when I got my first job in a top 40 band when I was 14 or something, 15, 14, we used to play Suffragette City. And I really liked that song, and then I learned about that. That was probably the first album. That's Ziggy. That was the first Bowie album I was introduced to by the guy who hired me in that band. So that was kind of my first thing, and I was like, yeah, I like this record, and I love Suffragette City. In fact, I begged him to put that in the show because I just thought I used to play this when I was 14 in a bar, and I've got to do it now. So but then that was my sort of thing of Bowie. That was it. And then Young Americans came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the same guy from Ziggy doing Philly Soul, which is my hometown, Philadelphia. But that's not the reason it's my favorite record though. But I just could hear, like, I just thought his singing on that record was still to this day one of the best male voices in history ever on a recording on that record. And he used to laugh with me and say, he used to say to me, he's glad that I didn't know him in those days because he was on cocaine and blah, blah. I mean, maybe he wasn't a nice person, I don't know. But he said, I'm glad you didn't know me in those days. But I said, whatever you were snorting or whatever, I was like, I don't know. I don't care how fucked up you were. You sounded amazing on that record. And I don't know if it was the drugs or what, but we would joke about that sometimes. But I could probably listen to most things on that record over. I could listen to Win over and over again. Can You Hear Me for sure. What a vocal on that. So that would be my favorites. I'm sure there's others. I just can't think of them now. Yeah, there's so many songs. So many great songs from him. So many.
Okay. Thank
Sorry,
you.
I make my answers so complicated.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I was just wondering if you were finished or not.
Yeah.
Ok. Donc voilà, pour répondre à la question de Mélanie, bah voilà, il y a notamment la chanson Strangers When We Meet que Gail a jouée il n'y a pas longtemps au cours d'une célébration pour David Bowie, qu'elle aime particulièrement. Sinon, elle parlait, donc elle expliquait que quand elle avait 14 ans, son premier job, donc c'était de faire des concerts au cours desquels elle jouait notamment Suffragette City. Et elle a d'ailleurs supplié David Bowie de jouer ces morceaux en concert. Mais après, elle a découvert The Young Americans, donc l'album, et où elle s'est rendue compte, voilà, elle s'est dit c'est vraiment un chanteur incroyable. Elle trouve que sur cet album c'est vraiment la meilleure voix masculine de tous les temps. Et quand elle en parlait avec David Bowie, il disait qu'il était quand même très content qu'elle ne l'ait pas connu à ce moment-là parce qu'il était, à cause de la cocaïne qu'il prenait, etc. Donc voilà, c'était une personne différente. Mais elle disait que voilà, peu importe ce qu'il prenait, en tout cas, sa voix était incroyable. Et donc, elle mentionne notamment les titres Win et Can You Hear Me de cet album qu'elle aime particulièrement.
J'aurais une question. Hi Gail.
Hello.
Notamment sur la genèse de The Next Day, l'album qui nous est tombé du ciel comme ça un jour de janvier. Et tout le secret qu'il y a autour de cet album et ce qui ont fait un album assez particulier. Et donc voilà, j'aurais voulu savoir tout ce qui a pu se passer pour que cet album arrive au grand jour sans que personne soit au courant.
Et si je peux me permettre d'ajouter une petite chose, donc entre la fin de la tournée Reality en 2003 et l'annonce de l'album The Next Day, il s'est passé 10 ans. Qu'est-ce que Gail a pensé de Bowie? Je veux dire par là, est-ce qu'elle a pensé c'est fini pour Bowie, voilà, je n'entendrai plus jamais parler de lui, ou je pense qu'il va faire un comeback, ou est-ce que éventuellement, sans être discourtois, est-ce qu'elle a pensé que Bowie était un artiste du passé, c'est-à-dire qu'il allait éternellement jouer ses vieux hits et que plus jamais il allait renaître comme il a pu renaître en 2013. Merci.
So Gail, there were two questions here. So I'm going to start with the first one, which was about the album The Next Day. So it was released all of a sudden for everybody. No one knew about it. It was a big secret. So she just wants to know how it came along and how it was such a secret, you know.
It was a secret intentionally because you know, I think, you know, the time period between finishing the last tour and that record becoming, you know, coming out. Of course, he had his health issues. He had a heart attack. He had some kind of a cardiac issue while we were finishing up the reality tour. So, you know, he went and took care of himself. And he also wanted to spend time with his family, which was understandable. I don't think any of us knew what was going to happen after that point, or if he would tour again, if he would make a record. And so personally, when I would finish a tour with anybody, whether it's David or anyone, I never assume that I'm going to go again, because until it's, you know, until you have your plane ticket, this is always my rule, no matter what, until you have that plane ticket, and even then you can't be sure. It's like you're open for the next thing. You're thinking, well, what will be next? Will I, you know, I don't assume. I'm not sitting there going, oh, of course he's going to call me, or, you know. So, you know, I went on and did other things. I worked on my music. I worked with other people. And out of nowhere, and I kept in touch with him via email. I don't think I saw him much during that period. And he was just saying, I'm doing my charcoals and I'm playing with my daughter. And, you know, he was just kind of chilling out. But I knew, just knowing what the years I had already spent with him, that he would be doing something. He's not going to just really be sitting around just doing his charcoals. I knew that he would be creating something in his head. And so he was working on that music. And out of nowhere, I got a phone call, which was normal with him. He just called and said, what are you up to? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I said, well, I'm still working with Lenny, and I'm just, you know, going to do some stuff with Olivia Newton-John and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, we're going to do another record. I was like, oh, wow. He said, but it has to be secret.
Wow.
Because now, and this was at that time, whenever it was 2000, whenever it was 13, whenever 10 or 13. Well, we recorded it maybe a year or two before it actually came out. So I can't remember the time frame off the top of my head because everything's a blur at this point. But he said to me, if you're going to do this, you have to agree that you don't tell anyone what you're doing, not even your family, your husbands, your wives, your mother, your father. Like, nobody can know this, because at these days, I'm paraphrasing what he would have said, but he was like, you can't do anything in secret these days. And if people know, and also if you're recording stuff, like songs were getting leaked out, like people, even now, it's like things come out before they're finished, or somebody got a tape, or somebody who worked in the studio came in later and took something off the computer, or had, you know, or put it on an iPhone. Like, you could, like, privacy just did not exist. And it was a big issue for him. And I get it, because it's a very big issue for me. So I was like, I am 100% on the same page, that you can't do anything without everybody knowing about it. And also, when you do announce you're making a record after that amount of time, and I'm guessing this in his head, I'm not saying this is what he told me, but from what the conversations we had, I believe that he felt like you put out something, you tell people you're going to do something, and they already start making an opinion about it. There's already a criticism or an idea or articles or this or that. And basically, I feel like he really was wanting to just get back to the purity of music itself, not what goes around it, not all the chatter and banter and internet and all that, you know, critics and, you know, opinions and all this kind of stuff, and the expectations of things. You know, what will it be? It's like, you know, so I think he just wanted to eliminate the chatter and do like it used to be in the old days. In the 70s, a record just came out. You didn't know when I didn't even know he was in Philadelphia making Young Americans. And then one day it came out. And then you're like, yeah, okay. So it's not all this idea of what might come or focus on it when you're just trying to make the damn music. You know, you don't want people talking about it before it's done. So, but now everybody talks about everything. So that's why he said it has to be secret. And we tried, and I was waiting for these calls because he was looking for the right studio in which to do it that was going to be secret enough in New York City, you know, so that you weren't going to see him come, you know, get a whiff of it, or the press find out, or they're outside with cameras or whatever. So there were 2 false alarms. He had 2 places, and he called and said, oh, somebody leaked it. Somebody said something that we're going to be here. So and then we found the magic shop, which was right around the corner from his house, which was perfect. And I had one friend who I told, who he really liked, and she's also a bass player. Her name is Sarah Lee. She plays bass with the B-52s and Gang of Four, and Sarah's my best friend. She lives in this area, and she had hung out with us a few times on tour, and I needed somebody to bring me down to the city with all my stuff. And everybody else I told, I was going to, I said, I'm going to be gone for a couple of weeks. I'm doing a record. I had to make up the person. I said, oh, it's a Swedish artist that I never heard of this guy, but he's like really good. And so, you know, so I made up this story about some record I was working on that no one would know at all who this person was. So it didn't make any difference, and I'll be back. And, you know, so everybody else in my life just thought, oh, I'm just doing a session in New York City, but no one knew it was for David, except Sarah, because she came to deliver me to the studio and help me bring all my gear in and set up. So she was in the clan, but that was it. I had only one person. And that was why, I think I've answered the question. I'm sorry, long-winded again. I think that's why he wanted to keep that a secret, just for the sake of privacy and making the record have the maximum impact. Here is some new music. Now you make up your mind what you want to say about it, or think about it, or talk about it, but not before it's finished.
Thank you. And so you answered both questions, actually.
Oh, good.
Yes. Donc voilà, tout le monde. Donc Gail a un peu répondu aux deux questions. Donc elle explique que The Next Day, voilà, c'était un peu un secret, c'était intentionnel. Donc elle explique effectivement qu'entre la fin de la tournée Reality et la sortie de The Next Day, il s'est passé une grosse période de temps, et en fait, bon voilà, David Bowie, comme vous le savez, a eu des problèmes de santé, il a fait une crise cardiaque, et donc voilà, il a pris le temps de prendre soin de lui, et même elle, après ça, elle se demandait ce qui allait se passer, et elle ne supposait pas qu'il allait la rappeler pour qu'elle vienne rejouer avec lui. Elle a travaillé sur ses propres projets en attendant, tout en gardant un contact. Mais elle savait que David Bowie ne pouvait pas rester comme ça sans rien avoir en tête. Elle savait qu'il allait vouloir faire de la musique. Et donc, tout d'un coup, elle a reçu un coup de téléphone pour lui dire qu'il faisait un nouvel album. Donc, voilà, mais lui a demandé de garder ça secret. Et donc, vraiment le dire à personne, même pas à la famille, pas aux amis, personne. Et donc, elle a dû inventer des histoires auprès de sa famille, dire qu'elle allait travailler avec un artiste suédois pour qu'on la laisse tranquille. Juste sa meilleure amie, Sarah Lee, qui joue de la basse notamment pour B-52s, a été mise au courant parce qu'elle a dû amener Gail au studio. Et en fait, voilà, elle pense que le fait d'avoir gardé ça secret, c'était pour des questions de vie privée. Qui est quelque chose de très important, qui était quelque chose de très important pour David Bowie, parce que voilà, maintenant, dès qu'on sait qu'il y a un album qui est en train de se faire, il y a des fuites, etc. Et les gens se font déjà leur propre opinion avant que quoi que ce soit ne soit publié. Et les gens ont des attentes, et en fait, elle pense que David Bowie voulait simplement retrouver la pureté de la musique, et qu'il voulait avoir un impact avec cette musique, et simplement sortir un album comme dans le temps où voilà, les gens n'étaient pas au courant, et tout d'un coup, il y a un album qui sortait. Voilà, tout simplement.
Merci Coraline. Alors, je vais juste préciser à toutes et à tous qu'il nous reste un gros quart d'heure. Donc, on va prendre rapidement les questions. Une question par personne maximum, s'il vous plaît. Comme ça, tout le monde pourra essayer en tout cas de poser ses questions. Et je rappelle aussi que Gail nous présente ici son Patreon. Et donc, une fois par mois, elle propose ce genre de chat aussi. Donc, si jamais vous n'avez pas l'occasion de poser les questions ici, n'hésitez pas à rejoindre le Patreon de Gail Dorsey en vous inscrivant, et vous pourrez avoir ce genre de chat comme ici. Aline, alors avant de remercier Gail, vous rappelez encore une fois le Patreon de Gail Dorsey. Je vois que sur le chat, plusieurs personnes ont publié déjà le lien vers le Patreon. Ne vous inquiétez pas, je vous enverrai aussi, comme vous êtes inscrit sur Eventbrite, je vous enverrai évidemment par mail à tous les participants et participantes le lien vers le Patreon de Gail Dorsey. Vous aurez toutes les informations pour pouvoir vous abonner sur ce Patreon. Je suis moi-même abonné, je vous conseille vraiment de nous rejoindre, c'est vraiment super sympa, il y a plein de choses à découvrir. Voilà. Je voudrais juste dire un énorme merci à Gail Dorsey, c'était vraiment un super moment. Merci de la part de tout le monde, et à très bientôt.
Okay, so Gail, we are finished for tonight.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I was trying to, I wasn't seeing every now and then I would see a question come in and then go away, and I wasn't able to see some of the things coming on the chat. So I feel sorry if I haven't answered some things that people have sent, but I saw a friend of mine was there, Francois Long. Are you still there? Francois was there. He's in Amiens in France. But anyway, yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't get to answer some things that were coming up on the chat, but maybe next time. And I mean, for the basic subscription and Patreon, you will get the monthly chat anyway. So, you know, maybe that's worth something to you if you want to ask me some more questions.
Yeah, that's
thank you all so much. Thank you for coming. Merci beaucoup.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And
very
thank
much.
you, Laurent and Coraline. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Well,
yeah, everybody.
Pleasure.
I hope everyone stays safe and well and inspired and just, you know, keep feeling good, sending out good vibes. We need good energy in the world. It's getting ugly out there. So let's do something about it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
S'il vous plaît. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Gail.
Merci. Merci.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Au revoir.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Merci. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bravo, Coraline.
I'm seeing everybody that's coming that I couldn't see. Okay, good.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Au revoir, Gail.
Au revoir.
À Philadelphie.
Salut, et santé à tous.
Et c'était Véro, là.
Là, et Patty.
Cheers.
Tony.